What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be covering a N54 6-speed trans swap into my E36 M3 with an M52 in front of it. So I'm going to start off by telling you guys what clutch I am using. So this is an X clutch twin disc 9-inch rigid ceramic. You could use any N54 clutch for the swap. I just chose twin disc because I'm not trying to do a 4-puck or 4-puck sprung or unsprung clutch as a street car. So yeah, this was the best option. I picked it up for $15.90 from Billiam. I'll probably put his stuff down here if you guys are interested in picking up one of these clutches for your N54 or for your M52. But you do need a 8-bolt flywheel for N54, so that's going to be any year under 08. That's the only part that you do need for the M52. So make sure if you are doing this swap, you pick up an 8-bolt flywheel. 8-bolt flywheel and whatever clutch kit you want. Some clutch kits do come with a flywheel, so just make sure it is 8-bolt. Next, you are going to need a custom trans bracket or mounting solution. Vader Solution, Omar at Vader, makes a pretty good transmission brace and mount. I made my own because my car or my N54 trans did not come with a support bracket behind the trans. So this is just 3/16 or 1/4 inch aluminum. This will be going, I just did this for mock-up purposes, and this was the only aluminum I had or remnant metal I did have on hand. So I went with 3/16 or 1/4 inch aluminum, and I welded this up. Don't mind the welds, they're pretty ugly, but they're gonna hold. So yeah, this is the rear support, and the transmission puck goes underneath like that, and then it'll mount to this cross base here, which is just a 3/16 inch piece of stainless steel. Yeah, so you need a transition cross brace and a transmission mount if you don't have one. I don't know of anyone else that does offer them or make them, so I just went ahead and made my own. I did also, if you are missing one, do not buy an automatic rear transmission mount because they do not fit with the manuals. I have an automatic one that I tried and it does not work. Next on the list is you are going to need a N54 Starter. And the N54 Starter seems to be almost identical to the E36 one. I'm not sure what the differences are, but you do have to space it out. So I'm going to go into detail once I install the transmission and starter and stuff on that. Next is you use the same clutch line off the E36. So here's the hard line that comes off the master, goes to here, and this is the stock M52 or stock E36 one that just bolts directly up to the slave cylinder with no issues. I don't know if I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, and for drive shaft, so you do need a E90 328 XI front half of the drive shaft, or so it's the rear portion, but you need the front part of the rear section of the drive shaft. That makes any sense. You also need a E90 Guibo, which I just bought mine from FCP. The E36 one does not fit. You also need a 4-bolt rear section of the E36 drive shaft, as the 6 bolts do not work with the setup. If you guys are pretty familiar with the E36 drive shafts, the 6-bolt drive shaft has a bolt that connects the rear section to the front section, whereas the 4-bolt uses just that big outside locking nut, and that's what you need. So yeah, I went ahead and luckily this car's a 98 and it was an auto, so I had a automatic drive shaft that I was able to use. Could be auto or manual, it doesn't matter. You just need the rear section. And I think that pretty much covers most of it. If I am forgetting anything, I'll probably just go ahead and add it in. But I'm gonna get started on putting the flywheel on and the clutch kit, and then I'll throw the trans on. Or not, sorry, because you have to bore out some holes to fit some of the bolts on there. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and do that as well. And then I'll show you guys which ones you guys need to do. But I'm gonna get started. Probably gonna throw a time lapse in, and yeah. So let's get started, and hopefully everything works out perfectly. I hope. Alright guys, so I got the clutch and transmission put into the car, or I got everything installed basically. But as you guys saw in the time lapse, I was kind of having an issue with the flywheel bolts that were included. They actually weren't long enough, so it did pull the threads off of the bolts, some of them. So I ended up just using these stock E36 flywheel bolts, which work perfect, and they are the perfect length. So yeah, keep that in mind if you're going with the X clutch or maybe any twin disc, I'm not sure, but for my application with the X clutch twin disc, it did not work. Those bolts did not work, so I ended up replacing them with the E36 ones, as I said. And yeah, so I ended up putting the motor and trans in. If you are doing this by yourself, I highly suggest throwing the transmission onto a floor jack, jacking up the transmission, and leveling it out with your motor, and then slipping it on that way, because I basically broke my back trying to do that. So yeah, I ended up having to use a floor jack. So now I'm gonna cover the starter. I'm not sure how well you can see this. Sorry for the scary noises. So yeah, I use the stock M10 by 1.5 starter bolts that the E36 uses, and I use three M10 washers. The reason why I'd use the washers was because I just want to test it out first, see if it works, and then I'll be making an actual spacer with this 3/16" steel, which hopefully will work. The reason why I don't want to use the washers forever is because there's a chance for these starter ears to rip off. Also, a good tip for figuring out what holes work and which ones don't, use the E36 dust shield and lay it on top of the transmission, and then mark the holes that need to be drilled out. I want to say drilled out, but you do need to. I'm out of breath. Fuck, why am I out of breath? But you do need to. What's the fucking word? Anyways, yeah, you get what I'm saying. You have to kind of drill them out to make room, or for the holes to match up with the block. So I did get 5 bolts to work. I was thinking about drilling out the other holes for the oil pan, which I believe that's all that's missing, but it just isn't worth it, and I believe the 5 bolts are gonna do just fine. Yeah, so that's gonna cover the clutch, transmission, and starter. As for the mounts, I ended up, like I showed you, I don't know if I actually showed you guys, but I used the 3/16" steel right there. I'm not sure if it's focused or not. Right there, 3/16" steel. I still need to drill out the other holes, the 2 holes down there. And then my custom aluminum trans support bracket right there with the 1 trans bushing. And it works good. It's centered up. properly. Yeah, if you don't have, or for some reason you didn't get the support bracket, I would suggest making a cardboard template and then having someone mill one or something. That way it's a legit bracket. Or just finding a stock one, but it was almost impossible for me to find one in such short notice. Yeah, that's gonna pretty much cover the trans mount and stuff. Also for the drive shaft, here's a good view of the drive shaft again. Stock E90 328i rear section of the drive shaft, but this is rear drive shaft, but this is the front section. And the E36 rear 4-bolt. And like I was saying earlier, it has the locking thing here. So as you can see, the splines are actually on the rear section and not the front section. And this is the E90 one, the stock E90 rear section of the rear drive shaft. And same thing, but it doesn't have the locking nut like the E36 one does. It just has the boot, which I probably should have cut and put on the other drive shaft. And then I believe this is the 6-bolt E36 one, so 95 and before. And like I said, it has the bolt in the middle, so you can't really use the E90 328 one. So I do suggest, if you kind of want to do it on a budget, get the E90 328 all-wheel drive rear section drive shaft or rear drive shaft front section. I picked mine up for $80 from LKQ, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I believe I covered it all. You need obviously the N54 trans, a 8-bolt N54 clutch kit. Any clutch kit works as long as it's 8-bolt. You need the all-wheel drive 328i front or rear drive shaft front section. N54 starter. You need to space out the starter, and you need to... Fuck, why am I out of breath? I think it's because I'm talking too much. But you also need to drill out the holes for the top two. That's it. Everything else lines up perfect. And then on the E36 harness, you also have to cut the... I don't know what it's called, but I do have a connector. So E36 one comes with that yellow one, or that's the best example I could give you. But you need a female spade connector, so just cut that off, crimp a female spade connector on there, and you're good. And then the clutch line, stock E36 clutch line works. You don't need anything special unless you want to do like a stainless braided line. It's pretty much plug and play. Yeah, the slave, so you need obviously the N54 slave or the E90 slave, and then you need the hard line that comes off of the slave. And from that hard line, you use the E36 soft line to the E36 hard line that goes to the slave. That's it. But yeah, that's pretty much gonna cover it for this video. If you guys do have any questions, leave a comment down below, and I'll try to answer them. All right, so I'm actually back. Oh shit. All right, guys. So I did fuck up on one thing for the trans swap. You actually need a bigger spacer for the starter, otherwise you get a starter whine or grinding noise. What I ended up doing was using a 3-inch V-band that fit perfectly over the starter, and a M10 by 1.5 90mm bolt right there on the bottom, and then I used the stock E36 bolt for the top. This will help with the starter grinding because the factory N54 block is like a 20mm spacer. As you can see there, it's spaced out pretty good. Again, this is not a permanent solution. This will be fixed. when I have access to someone who could 3D print me a spacer, or maybe just get it milled. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.